All right, all right. So, back here for another stream. I'm hoping I got the internet issue solved here. You know, it shouldn't be as difficult and frustrating that it is to to get this shit working. You know what I'm saying? Think about the struggle that I got to go through in order to do just a damn live stream. All right, let me describe this to you. I don't have what's it called? Data that you can use whenever you go out the house, right? So what I got to do is I have to be within 100 feet of the Wi-Fi sensor at the house, right? So I had it set up in a room that's like 80 feet from where I'm at, or really like what 60 feet. We'll just say in the range of 60 to 80 feet, right? And that might even be over exaggerating it, right? Um, I need it there because I need it to be directly hooked into a Xbox that needs a power cord directly going from the Wi-Fi router to the direct system for a whole nother bullshit situation that I don't even need to get into. Right? I'm just expressing the unnecessary aggravation that I have to go through to do a live stream. Right? So what I had to do, I went back upstairs 2 times to reset the router, hoping, "Okay, this time maybe it'll work if I move it maybe 10 feet closer." That didn't work. Okay, I'll go back up again. Have to What I decided to do, unplug everything, move it to a whole nother location, and apparently that worked, but the whole headache is now when I wanna use the Xbox, I gotta go through the bullshit of moving all the shit to the other room in order to, use that system again. And, it shouldn't be like this, it shouldn't be this bad service, literally paying $100 a month for this internet service. I expect it to work within 100 feet of the router, which where I'm at is within 100 feet of the router. So I have no clue why the hell it's not working. Like literally, say for instance, of why it makes no sense is because literally in the same spot that I had the router in, I came out and did a stream like what, maybe 2 weeks ago. It worked fine without any problem at all. But of course, now all of a sudden, it is a problem. So just unnecessary aggravation. So do excuse my rant, but that's for anybody who is wondering why the last stream got canceled and deleted and why it was all, a big hassle. That's the reason why. Just to explain that for people tuning in now who saw the last live stream, right? So that's the whole hassle with that. So, anyway, there's a lot of shit going on in the world right now, man. A lot of stuff going on, with the whole, war in the Middle East now, to, hell, the price of gas over here in the US, which, is directly caused by, the war going on over there. Just overall a lot of shit going on right now. The Genesis said, or I should say, Jared Genesis said, "We can hear you." Okay, cool. Um, Al Fly said, "Did banana flake?" He is referring to an individual that's on. Well, actually, you can see him in the thumbnail of this live stream, unless I change it. But that's an individual that goes by the name of Banana, who's a free gracer that you can find him on the Layman Seminary's channel, which I call him the Layman Cemetery. But that's really what that is over there. It's not a theological seminary school. It's a theological cemetery school, as Apostle Tahar would call it, right? It's a theological cemetery, because they're not teaching you people the truth. They're teaching you a lie, a comfortable lie, right? So basically, what I did, I went over there like, I want to say nearly 3 months ago, 2.5, 3 months ago. I saw that these three jokers were up there having a open panel dialogue, just the three of them up there. So I was like, you know what, let's spice this up a little bit. So I clicked the link and we actually had like a 2.5, 3 hour conversation. It was actually pretty decent for the most part. Um, and you can watch it. I put a link to Layman Seminary's video that he like took it and re-uploaded it a couple days ago. So I put a link to it in my community page so people can go watch it on his channel. And at a later date, I'll upload the whole thing on my channel, but I have not released it here yet. But you can watch the whole thing on his channel if you please. But I did upload a clip from it. I want to say within the last like 7 days or so. Um, and I entitled the video something along the lines as just believe and make you saved forever or something like that. Because that's what those knuckleheads believe over there. Is that look, all you have to do is just believe, right? Just believe in Jesus, and you're saved forever. It's like, okay, I mean, it's obviously not true. I mean, it's not just believe something one time and then, that you're automatically saved. Like, say, for instance, like I was talking with these jokers over there, Banana and Crab and Layman. I believe his name is Charles, right? I believe the dude's name is Charles, right? The Layman guy. And, basically that's their position, right? They'll bring up, well, in this certain instance in the Bible, Christ went into a town and people believed on him. So see, that means they're saved forever because they saw him do a miracle and they believed. So see, they got salvation right there on that random, Thursday night where they saw Christ perform a miracle. It's like, okay, I mean, it's so obvious that these guys are just lost in the sauce, don't have any clue what the hell's going on, because salvation is not just, a one and done thing, like it's really preposterous. These guys make salvation like basically it's as simple as ordering a Starbucks coffee, is in basic terms what these guys make biblical salvation appear as. Oh, you just gotta believe, and you're saved forever. I completely annihilated these guys because they asked them, okay, well, let's use your logic for a second. Let's use your logic and reasoning. So you guys are saying, oh, just believe, saved forever, right? Anybody can just believe, and they're automatically saved. It's like, okay, what about was that James 2:19? It says, even the devils, right? The demons, they fear and believe. But hold up a second. It says even the devils they fear and believe. So doesn't that mean that they're saved then? Because remember, these jokers just said, "Oh, well, it's just belief, right? It's just belief alone, just belief alone." It's like, okay, well, Bible says even the devils believe. So does that mean that they're now saved magically too? And then of course they'll be like, "Oh, well, it don't really apply to them." It's like, okay, well, let's look a little bit deeper. Well, let me expose you a little bit more here. So I asked them, is it true or false that with the free grace mindset, you guys believe that anybody who believes that Christ is the Son of God, gets eternal life? And they confirm, yes, that is what we believe as free gracers, that all you have to do is, just believe, right? And, if you confess that Christ is the Son of God that was sent for, forgiveness of sin, if you believe on that, then you're saved. So then I asked them, and this was the trick bag. I was setting these guys up for the kill shot, for lack of better terms here. Right? These dudes walked themselves into their own early grave. Pardon the pun, because these guys are, the layman's cemetery. But anyway, what I did is I asked him, okay, so by your logic and reasoning, all you have to do is just believe that Christ is the Son of God. He died and rose again, and well, that's it. It's like, okay, well, here's the knockout. If you read Mark the fifth chapter, it says that when Christ went to that legion of demons that were possessing that man that came out of the caves to meet Christ. Right, Christ told the demons to come out of the man. The demons listened, and if you read the story, it says the demons even called Christ the Son of God. Right? They said, I'm nearly paraphrasing, but you can read it yourself. They said that we know thou art the Son of God. Right? They acknowledge Christ as the Son of God. So by a banana and crab and layman cemetery, right, Charles, by their logic, doesn't that mean that the demons, that legion of demons, are saved because they acknowledge Christ as the Son of God? And I deliberately asked him the question, from your free grace viewpoint, you guys believe, and I asked them to validate to make sure I'm not misunderstanding. They said, yes, we believe that, as long as you truly confess that Christ was the Son of God, you're saved forever. It's like, okay. Well, it says here in Mark 5 that the devils, they believe that Christ was the Son of God. So does that mean that they're saved forever? And he really couldn't, none of them could really answer that question, right? They had to, try to wiggle their way out of that question. But it was brutal, right? That discussion was brutal for them. And I would recommend anybody who's listening who has not watched that debate, I recommend go check that out. And after this live stream, I will pin it in the comment section down below. So after this live stream, like if you're watching after this show's over, you can head down to the comment section and you'll find a link to the debate pinned down in the comment section down below. So do be on the lookout for that. Let me see here. Yeah, going back to the internet situation, it's a damn shame that I had to delete the live stream and restart it because we had a lot of familiar faces who were popping up in the chat and putting up some decent comments, but I couldn't address them because the damn volume wouldn't work. You know what I'm saying? So unfortunate that we lost some familiar faces that we typically see on here. Right, because people don't always get the notification. I shared this, well, the last live stream I shared in the Discord to let people know that I would be on here. But this one I was not able to, due to trying to fix the situation and be able to go live within a reasonable time for what they have available for me tonight. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to share the show on there like I did with the previous one, which, of course, due to the unfortunate circumstances, I had to take down. But hey, it is what it is. That's just the way you gotta look at things, man. Okay, let me see real quick. But yeah, I mean, in conclusion, in that debate, as I said, if you watch the whole thing, that was totally just brutal, absolutely brutal. No, look, I went on there and single-handedly, whipped these guys, right? Banana and Crab. And to be fair, Layman, right, Charles, he basically just sat back and moderated. He maybe interacted maybe like 20 minutes throughout the whole conversation, but still, he's technically there. So we got to add him on to the thing as well. And he said some stupid shit as well. Like there was a part of the debate where we talk about Babylon. I stand on that. That's America. These guys were saying, well, they were actually confused among themselves. One knucklehead was talking about, well, might be, a couple hundred years in the future. Charles was like, oh, well, it could just like, pop up overnight, basically, like how in some places in the world they can construct, cities within like what, like 2 months, right? They can, yeah, and it was really weird what some of these knuckleheads were on there talking about. I'd recommend checking out the entire discussion if you have not already, right? We're just really weird what these guys are on there talking about, man. But it was just totally a wipeout for them. I mean, those boys weren't ready for that. They were not ready. Okay, let me check something real quick. Yeah, something that needs to be talked about. I was on a Reddit the other day, and I was looking at like some type of thread. I believe it's like someone wanted to look it up. I believe it's like apartment living or something like that is the thread that this was on, right? Or like next door neighbor, something along those lines was the Reddit thread that I found this video on. And the video was about like this drunk dude, making a damn fool of himself, jumping around, jumping on a damn table, dancing around on some patio or something. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because there were only like 4 people in there who were saying that this is AI. Everybody else was convinced that this is real. But, it's like if you actually just take the time and look at the video, you'll clearly see that there's obvious flaws here. Like, say, for instance, um, the way this dude jumps onto this table and like levitates back up. It's like, that doesn't really happen in real life. And some people were like, well, look, here's a link to this guy's Instagram page. See, he's a real person. So that proves this is real. It's like, dummy, you do realize the AI can take real people and put them into these like cartoonish videos that it can artificially create. Right. So just because they might have a real guy in the video, that doesn't make it not AI anymore, just because the guy might exist in real life. They could easily just take the dude and put him into the artificial video. Like this is not hard to do. So there was like a whole, bickering back and forth that was going on between people saying, "Oh, it's real, none of it's AI," and then the people who were saying it's AI. And again, there were only like what 4 or 5 people on there saying that it's AI, but then there's thousands of people on there talking about, oh, well, this is real. This is real. This guy, yeah, there's something wrong with this dude here. And then people were like, yeah, we can't believe people believe that this is AI. And for the couple smart ones there that can see it's AI is like, you know, it's really this easy to trick you people, right? It's really this easy to trick you naive people to believe these videos. Like, I mean, seriously, it's getting so bad now with people, you're not being able to tell the difference between real life and AI. That I even have stupid people comment on my videos once or twice saying, look at this guy right there. Like, you can see me on the screen in those videos talking, right? And they'll be like, oh, well, this guy's actually could be AI. It's like, so it shows how out of touch that most people are, right? That, can't tell the difference between what's real, what is not real, and it really is just pathetic. It's getting just pathetic out here and weird as well, right? And weird as well. Same thing with some game graphics, right? There's some games out here, man, that are getting to be, really advanced with their graphics. Say hell, say let's just hypothetically say, 5 to 10 years. We here don't believe that this place is going to go on that long, but for hypothetical example, if it was, in 5 to 10 years, who the hell knows how good it's going to get? You're probably not going to be able to tell the difference from the virtual and the reality, especially with these. You ever seen those virtual reality headsets that people are buying? So That's what I gotta say. That's what I gotta say on the topic. I'm just checking something here. Bear with me. Yeah, I'll be right back. All right, my bad. All right, this should be fine. But yeah, man, I'm just no, I really don't know at this point. I don't even know. It's just like I've been watching this one channel I'd recommend. Look this guy up. His channel name is Born into a Corrupt System. Right. I've been watching this guy's videos because it makes a lot of sense with what he's talking about. Right. This dude really makes a lot of sense with most of the topics that he's on there talking about. Here or there he'll go off, but everybody goes off on one or two things they say. You're never gonna find here's just some words of knowledge here. You're never going to find somebody on the internet that you watch that you're going to agree with everything they say on. And that's just what it is. I like to take the words of D. McClung, which was some channel I watched like 6 years ago. The dude only had like 25 subscribers, but he made a lot of good points in his videos. One saying that he had was, he was right until he was wrong. He was right until he was wrong, right? And that's how you got to view a lot of these guys on YouTube. They might be totally right with things they say about this topic here and that topic there, but then be totally incorrect about these other topics they talk about. Like, I'll give you an example. Like that Knucklehead Jill is a fantastic example. The dude's completely lost his mind when it comes to topics about like Trump or hell, even this war in Iran. I seen a comment this knucklehead said the other day. He was like, I asked him, well, what's your thoughts about this war that your favorite Trump has initiated? The knucklehead was like, well, what are you talking about? Well, this is God's holy war, right? This is a holy war. It's like, what the hell? What the hell is this knucklehead talking about? And when he says that, he's saying as if like Trump is acting on like a holy behalf with his attack upon Iran. That's what he's talking about there. It's like, what the hell is this guy talking about? This holy war that Trump is raging on Iran? Are you serious? Like, what are you talking about? Right? Like Trump can never do anything wrong in Jill's eyes. Basically, for lack of better terms, Jill views Trump as like some type of like king upon the earth, right? Some type of savior to America and the world. That's basically, in a nutshell, how Jill views Donald Trump, right? But the reason I brought Jill up as an example is he's wrong about many things that he says, but there are a couple things he says which are true. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, I see in his discussion with this other what's this cat, this preterist dude, right? Truth and Tello's ministry. I saw these dudes have a conversation, and Jill actually did pretty good in that conversation. I got to give the guy credit. No, he refuted the preterists. No, Christ didn't come back 2,000 years ago. No, we're not living underneath Christ's authority on earth today. The Bible wasn't fulfilled in 70 AD. So stuff like that, I'll give Joel credit. He holds a reasonable argument on those topics against preterism. But then, on the other hand, the dude goes off with mostly everything else that he talks about. So again, it just proves the statement I said about somebody can be right about some things they say and then be totally wrong about other things that they say. Like, I'll give you a great example. Like Captain Tazariak of the ISUPK. Some things he says are true, but other things he says are not true. Like, I'll give you an example. Something that he teaches that is true is that God isn't okay with a rainbow marriage. He's right on that, about how America is evil. He's right on that. About salvation wasn't for every person on earth. He's right on that. That God's not all about love and hugs and kisses. He's right about that. But something he's wrong on, or a few things that he's wrong on. Well, first of all, they teach in the ISUPK, which again, he's like a top leader over this organization, right? Or one of the top leaders. They teach that the MOTB is Christianity. It's like, no, that's totally wrong. That is totally not true. How the hell could a physical mark in the flesh, as the Bible describes, how can that be like a philosophy or a religion? How can people buy or sell or trade with a religion or a philosophy? That's totally ridiculous. So that's something they are clearly, obviously incorrect about teaching. And, there's a handful of other subjects that they're totally wrong about, such as, I'll give another example. They say that God didn't create man to be immortal, right? They teach that man always had like an expiration date even from the beginning, which is totally wrong, right? I mean, there's a verse in the Apocrypha. I don't think I can pull it up here. It might be Wisdom of Solomon 7:23 or something like that. But the verse, nearly paraphrasing, it says that God made man to be immortal. Right? It says that God made man in his own image and made him to be immortal. It's like, okay, well, that alone, cuts you guys. It says back in the beginning, right, when God first created humans, it says that God created man to be immortal, like unto himself. Right? Look that verse up. That's in the Apocrypha. So that's something these guys are clearly also wrong about as well. I'll give you another one. I'll give you another one. They teach that we're not allowed to marry women of another nation. Right? That's another thing that these jokers are wrong about, that they teach that, well, you can't, according to the scriptures, marry a woman of another nation. Right? Like say like an Edomite, for example, or a Moabite, for another example. Oh, well, you can't really marry them according to the Bible. Say, okay, well, that's clearly not true. How many righteous men of God throughout the Bible had wives of the other heathen nations? So that's a cut. Yeah, then second of all, what is that? I believe that's Deuteronomy chapter, what is that, 21 and verse 10 on down, I believe. It gives it about a law of war. That, and again, I'm nearly paraphrasing this. You can pull this all up to validate it for yourself. But it says, when you go to war against your enemies and you see a beautiful woman among the captives, and you desire her to be your wife, you can take her as your wife. It gives a couple of guidelines about how to go about taking that woman as a wife. But the point of the argument is, it says that when you go to war against your enemies, so you can't say this is just another tribe of Israel, because that's what these jokers will try to say. Oh, well, it's actually, another tribe of Israel. It's like, okay, well, back at this time, this is when the people like first came under Moses, right? So they weren't like split up to any degree yet. They weren't split up into all these different tribes, because when they got these laws and regulations down by God, These people were under Moses as one, right? So obviously, in context, when it talks about going to war against your enemies, it's obviously talking about the other nations. And even if, for hypothetical argument, even if it was after Israel, split into, these different lands and tribes and territories, you still can't say that, oh, well, another a tribe of Israel could be an enemy in this circumstance. It's like, no, you still can't make that argument because why the hell would the Bible be calling another tribe of Israel an enemy? Well, like how the hell does that make any damn sense? So this is such a hard point to prove that these guys are totally wrong with some of these topics that they're teaching, right? When you go to war against your enemy and see a woman among the captives that you want to marry, you can take her as your wife. That's what the Bible says. So, I mean, what is this nonsense about these guys talking about, oh, well, well, you can't marry a woman of the other nations? It's like, what the hell are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you talking about? Clearly, it clearly it allows it, right? Clearly it allows it. And anybody that wants to push back against that, is just going against the word of God is what they're doing. So who's a Hebrew Israelite here? Well, I would consider myself to be an Israelite, yeah. Now, that right off the start, that would be it wouldn't really be the correct term to call it black because, well, obviously not all of us are black. That's just like a slogan that the media tries to put upon us to give us um, a bad taste, for lack of better terms, right? Like um, a bad sense, for lack of better terms. But we wouldn't refer to ourselves as that. And again, anybody who's actually studious and looks into the topic, you would find out that if you look at the proposed 12 tribes chart from the One West, that like 90%, 80 to 90% of camps subscribe to, you would see that as you go through the chart, the Israelites they get less black, right? So I would be considered an Issacharite, right? I'm through descendants. I go back to being Mexican, right? So I would be labeled as a Issacharite, which is the 12th tribe of Israel. And that's the breakdown of that. Yeah, and this individual in the comment section, what's this guy? All love. Well, that's an interesting name, all love, because let me ask you a question: is God all love? Matter of fact, all love, do you want to come up here and talk? Do you want me to drop a link for you, all love? Do you want to come up on stage and we can talk about it? 'Cause I'm just curious because you're typing in my comments here, but your name uh seems like a contradiction, right? Because if you claim you believe in the Bible, well, the God of the Bible is not all love. So how can you be all love? Like, let me give you an example. Like, if you read, was that I want to say it's Ecclesiastes chapter 3 and verse 8. It says there's a time for love and a time to hate. There's a time for peace and a time for war. So the Bible says there's a time to love and a time to hate. There's a time for peace and a time for war. That's what the Bible says. There's not one verse in the Bible. Let me just educate you real quick. There's not one verse in the Bible, and this is coming from a dude who's read the entire Bible cover to cover multiple times, read each individual book by itself separately, including Apocrypha. There's not one verse in the Bible that says God loves every single person on earth. That is a lie. That's not true. And if you believe that, well, the burden of proof is on you to demonstrate that claim. But there's nothing that you can provide to prove that statement that I haven't heard before. All you'd be able to give is the same, mumble jumbo, sloppy Joe that these, Christian churches give out. Like, say, for instance, how diluted these churches are out here. And for the record, I'm not going to say this. All love character in the comment section is as diluted as these churches. It's just his name seems very ignorant. But these churches out here, they're so diluted out here. They'll tell you, well, hey, look, like, say, let's give a hypothetical example. Like, the church down the road's flying a pride flag outside the establishment, right? So if I was to go ask them, well, why are you guys flying this out here? Like, what does this represent? Why are you guys as Christians okay with this behavior? They'll be like, hey, well, look, they're not hurting me. Hey, love is love. Oh, God loves everybody. In fact, they'll get offended, by me even asking them about that. I'll be viewed as the hateful and disrespectful one for even asking them why they're, with those views. And why is that? Because they're all conformed to the way that this world has taught them to think. Right? So, being accepting of a rainbow marriage and a cross dressers, and feminism. And, the list could keep going on and on. But that's what this world wants to believe and follow. So these churches out here, not all of them, but by a large majority, they follow after these beliefs and customs. Jared Genesis said, a Saint Tamar from Discord's not going to join. Yeah, for those who are watching and don't know who he's referring to, there was some knucklehead on Discord that was named Saint Tamar. Dude basically had like the profile picture of some type of like neck beard or something like that. But this dude was like going back and forth with a couple people, talking a lot of shit. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be live in like an hour or so from now. Why don't you just click the link and come up on stage and let's just talk? Like instead of, running your mouth like a little sissy, why don't you just join the live stream and just have a discussion, right? We don't even have to call it a debate. You can just have a discussion. You know what I'm saying? Like say for instance, a dude will sit there and say, "Well, why in your picture do you have the star of like refill, or whatever these guys try to call the Star of David, right?" They're like, "Oh, why have that star?" And I was like, "Okay, well, let me educate you. Did you know that this Star of David, which first of all, according to the Bible, it's not a star, because did you know, according to the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 13, I want to say verse 2, it says that the stars are circles, right? It says the circle of the star. Look that up. So did you know that the Bible calls stars circles? So according to the Bible, this quote unquote Star of David that people wear, that's not a star in the Bible's context. That's not what a star is. I just provided a verse where the Bible calls stars circles. So obviously, this necklace I have on is not a circle, right? So what is it? And that's a good question. What is it? Well, I'll explain. If you read the book of 1 Kings, chapter 7, verse 18 and 19, it talks about how Solomon had the temple decorated with lily flowers, and in the stonework they engraved a pomegranate fruit. If you open up a pomegranate fruit, typically it's going to have like the inside of it is going to be shaped kind of like a star shape, right? Or what people today call stars, right? But that's basically the origin of the quote unquote Star of David. Is in the Bible's context, it just represents a lily flower or the inside of a pomegranate fruit. That's what it represents in the Bible. So again, if the cat had something to say, I mean, I told him, hey, look, man, here's a link to the show. Call in and let's get talking. You know what I'm saying? If you don't want to do that, then hey, I don't know what else to tell you. Right, right. Good point, Genesis. Hey, real quick before I read Genesis, all love. I addressed your statement, but can you acknowledge my question for you? My question for you is, can you provide to me where the Bible says that God loves everybody? Because why is your name all love? Because you're going against the scriptures. Because the Bible doesn't teach all love. First of all, the God of the Bible hates some people. So the Bible doesn't teach all love. So your name is a lie. Your name is against what the Bible says. All love. How the hell can you be all love and claim you believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, which literally flooded the entire world and killed every man, woman, and child, and cattle and beast, except 8 people and a few animals? Can someone explain that to me? How the hell can you sit there and call yourself, oh, all love, right? All just sweet love in Jesus, and yet you believe in a book where the God of the Bible is responsible for the death of millions throughout history. And atheists will try to be slick and try to say, well, see, well, why do you guys believe in that evil book? It's like, well, we believe in the Bible because it is the word of God. So, when you see God do certain things, like, kill like entire cities, burn whole cities, it happens for reasons. Like when God flooded the whole world, it was for a reason, because there was nothing good upon the earth, where everybody was living wickedly. So God had to reset it to start over better, right? It was for a reason why he did it. Or when God judged the Sodom and Gomorrah, it was for a reason why he did that. When God judges America, there's going to be a reason why he's doing that. When Christ returns and judges the world, there's going to be a reason for why he's doing that. So it's not like this is just for no reason, just out of the blue at random. Like that's clearly not what's going on here. Jared said, yeah, people see the symbol and they start getting upset. Yeah, yeah, exactly. People have like no reasoning. Like, say, for instance, people will try to say, well, wait, is that like a pentagram that you guys have? It's like, well, I can acknowledge it looks similar to what they display a pentagram. I can see the similarities, but when I explain what it means, you should be able to understand that this is not the same thing, right? When I wear it, um, from our religious text, this represents a lily flower or a pomegranate fruit. That's what it is according to the scriptures. And if you don't like that, then that's too bad. Let me give you another example, like the cross. Did you know that like in satanic practices and rituals, they'll take the cross, the same image that Christianity uses, and they'll like invert it for like, demonic purposes? It's like, okay, that doesn't make the image of the cross like now evil or something, just because a satanic group took the same image and just turned it upside down. Like, I mean, that's dumb to think like that. Then this guy's talking about, oh well, I don't really mean all love to people. I mean artificial intelligence love. So what the hell? What the hell? What are you what the hell does that mean? That's even more bizarre and strange. What do you mean artificial intelligence love? Like, I know about these like human-like robots they're making out here. People are saying that, if in the next like 20, 30 years, men are just gonna get, robots instead of getting, actual women to live with. So shit, are you like referring to that or something? But like, well, explain your name to me, my friend. He said that's Jay's account. I mean, hey, look, that doesn't surprise me. It probably is. Can I say that for 100%? I don't know, but that's most likely the case. And by the way, since we brought up Jay, I do want to make a disclaimer. It's been what, like 2 weeks since we had our interaction, for lack of better terms, and he has not contacted me. Well, I was going to say hasn't contacted me once, but he did contact me once, but it was for something totally unrelated to the topic of discussion. So I'll leave that to the side. But other than that, once that he contacted me for something totally unrelated with the topic of controversy, other than that, he has never contacted me to set up a discussion about the topics, about all, World War II and Adolf being a hero and all that, garbage. But y'all sold it, right? Y'all sold it. I offered him the opportunity to join and have a discussion about that sometime, and he never contacted me to do it. Say, hey, that's on him. That's not on me. But just putting that out there. Yeah, Genesis made a good point. Jared Genesis, excuse me. I always get that brother's name wrong, but it's my apology. He said, I remember when I first started watching you, I got confused as to why you wore it, but you showed me the verses and I researched it more, and I found out it's not an evil image. Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. Um, like I was watching a video that that the ISUPK did maybe like 2 years ago, and they showed it there was like some temple that was like 1600 years ago or something like that, and somewhere on the temple they showed the same image, and mentioned something along the lines of House of David or something like that, and it showed the same lily flower or pomegranate image, right, the quote unquote Star of David. So it showed you that people 1600 years ago understood that there was some connection between Israel and the quote unquote Star of David. Let me see here. Let me check something real quick. All Love said, I use AI to build apps. Okay, I mean, if that's what you're into, man, then that's fine. I mean, don't get me wrong, the AI does some good stuff, right? There are some good things that can come out of AI. Like, say, for instance, like I see people asking people to, can you use AI to like edit this photo for me? Like maybe there's people in the background you don't want in the shot. So to have people use the AI to, like either totally edit them out or like turn them into a tree or something in the background. So as I said, not everything with AI is bad. There can be some good stuff that comes out of it, but there's also negative stuff. Like I'll give an example. Like getting some like medical advice from it, could go wrong. right? Like I saw a video put up by Sam Bucha. You can look him up, and he was like testing like certain AI items, and he was testing an AI grill that's supposed to like detect what you put in it and give you like cooking directions on it. So what he did is he took like some doll and like put barbecue sauce on it. Then he put it in the thing, and it didn't detect that it wasn't chicken or food. If all it was if all it was barbecue chicken, and then gave him instructions on, how to further prepare his meal. So if it would have lit, and it actually did, if you watch the video, it did light up and start to melt the doll that he put in there. So the AI can be tricked. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is this guy in the comment section requested a link to join. So I'll give him a chance to talk. I'll let him say what he has to say up here. And we'll see where it goes. Real quick, Judah said you can use AI for business planning. Yeah, that's a good point. That's another good thing that comes with AI. Okay, give me a second. Yo, can you hear me? Lopez, can you hear me? Might have to unmute your mic.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir. I can hear you loud and clear.
What's going on?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
All right. So I've had discussions like this in the past. Recently, I had a discussion with somebody that was also an Aztec, or he was specifically, I'm not sure if you're an Aztec, he's Israelite, but he said he was, and he was using this DNA website that was sketchy, and then he was claiming that he was from like the Middle East. Is that what you believe?
Well, I don't go by the same beliefs as the individual that you were speaking to. So I personally wouldn't trust any of these DNA websites and tracking and stuff like that. I don't believe that's reliable. Like say for instance, right? Like the same people using that are like the same scientists that'll tell you they can prove that the Earth is like millions of years old and all that mumbo jumbo. So I discredit all of that stuff. Or they can like date rocks and shit. So yeah, I don't accept that.
So you don't believe like that we could determine who's related to who?
No, I wouldn't say that these like ancestry.com and ancestry sites, I don't trust that stuff.
Okay, so she
But,
wouldn't
but
even
let me
believe
let
like
me ask you a question. If you take a rock in your backyard to a scientist and they tell you that they can date it to 43 million years ago, do you believe him, or do you believe that his
well, I'm not
research
arguing
is
that.
wrong?
I'm just saying
No, but I'm just saying, like the same researchers that give you this DNA
no. Well,
research are
technically,
some
it's
of
not
the
the
same.
same. It's not even the same. Like, not even the same. I think there requires like more evidence. I think for like dating history, right? But we can even date like the Shroud of Turin, right? We know that, so we can date like certain things, but there
Well,
comes to a
well, just
point
just
where
so I understand, the Shroud of Turin, which I've had a debate about that actually. You believe, and I'm asking to clarify because I don't know, but you believe that that's actually Jesus on there, right?
no, I'm saying that it's been dated twice, and the more recent date, I think they say is more accurate because they're actually testing the original fabric, not like a addition that was added because of a fire, which is what they tested back in like the 80s or whatever they tested the first time. I'm just talking about like the update updated testing that's more reliable because they're using like an actual cloth that was like part of the original shroud.
Yeah, well, as far as like the dating that cloth, I mean, I could acknowledge that it could be from that time period based upon the material used for the shroud that they're in. But as far as like who it is, I think that's debatable. But I
Mm.
wouldn't argue that it could be from ancient time. Like there, we still have
But
stuff
I think
around today.
they've mentioned we can't reproduce it, but that doesn't mean that they didn't have any. I'm not arguing that they didn't have any technology, right? They could have technology that we
Right.
lost because we lost a large body of work with like the. I know the Library of Alexandria had a lot of works that we probably we lost a lot of stuff with astrology too, or like astronomy,
Right,
because
right. I
like the three
understand.
wise men, right? They had like a certain knowledge that we can't even like understand why they how they could like pinpoint, but obviously they knew certain things that we don't.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of things from the past that they might have understood that we might not be able today. Like I'll give you an example. If you ever looked into the Puma Punku stones, right? They're cut with precision that would be difficult for us to even replicate even today. You know,
Yeah, I've
so
heard about that where like they're so precisely cut that it seems like a saw, like a diamond saw, cut them.
right, right, or the Egyptian pyramids, right? People are still arguing how they move some of these stones. Like if you go into the king's chamber, there's some stones in there that are like 70 to 100 tons, each. So people are still
Yeah,
debating, as to how they were able to move those, or Stonehenge for another example. So yeah, I mean, I would agree with
I
you
think
on
they
that.
also
That
argue that like inside of the tomb, there's like no soot from the fire.
yeah,
So
yeah,
they
I've
argue that
seen
there
that
must
as
have been like
well.
lighting, like some battery lighting, right?
Yeah, it would seem like there was something that they had back then that is left out of the history books. Yeah, I would agree with you on that.
Yeah, so I wouldn't disagree with you that there's like some things that are like that science sometimes says that like you're left like scratching your head like why would they believe this as opposed to something else, right? Like so I do agree with you on in that aspect. There's a lot of things within science that are questionable, and that's what we're supposed to do in science too, right? It's like question things, but it gets to a point where like it becomes like hyper skepticism, and I think that's bad for science. Like a lot of scientists are very atheistic and they become skeptical about like spontaneous. For example, like every time I debate with like atheists, they'll try to say like, well, spontaneous formation. They'll try to like hand wave it or whatnot. They'll try to say, well, it's just like an anomaly and it's like an edge case or whatever. But in reality, there's like actual peer review for it. And since they can't explain it, they'll just say, well, we don't know. Maybe it'll be explained later on. But that's like you're like presupposing that like it's going to be explained at some point when there's no evidence that like a tumor should disappear and then what happened to all that matter, right, that was there. It just doesn't make sense from a natural perspective.
Right, right. I understand what you're saying. Well, real quick for the audience, explain your name that you were using in the comment section here. Well, when I saw it, I thought it says all love, but
Well,
apparently
I
you
know it
said it
looks like that,
represents.
and I did realize that's the way it looked. But
But
like
you
when I
said
was
apparently
I also
it.
have another name that's similar to it. It's called AI Flyer. But
Okay.
I've been just working with AI lately, and I sort of live within that the major hub of like technology. So that's kind of been what I've been doing a lot
Okay,
within like the
I can
past 10 years.
understand.
Yeah.
All right, I can understand that. I can understand that. Hell, now that I know the context, it makes it a little bit more easy to understand. You feel me?
But I understand that it looks the way that it could be interpreted as both ways, right? It could be interpreted because of the way it's written. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Right, I get what you're saying, man. Is this my
So
first live
you
stream
said you
you've
were
seen, or?
Mexican, right? You said you were of Mexican
Yes.
ancestry.
Yeah.
Where are your parents from?
Well, that's why I said through the lineage, I'd go back to Mexico.
But like say, because I know you. Do you believe that like the white race, or like the children of Esau. Like if your paternal lineage is European, right? Then a lot of Black Hebrew Israelites will say, or even Aztec Hebrew Israelites will say that then you're like Esau.
Yeah.
So how would you know, like, if your lineage goes back to Esau? Like, how do you know that it doesn't?
Well, one way I could say it don't is because I go back to my lineage goes back to Mexico. The Mexicans would be the Israel. They would be the 12th tribe of Israel. Um,
Well,
I don't know if you're ever familiar
you would
with
have to prove
the
that you're
12
like
tribes chart.
100% native, right? At that point, or
Prove
like
you're
you have to prove that
100%.
your paternal side is 100% native, or just your paternal side is like native,
Well,
goes tracks back to
here's the
native.
way we look at it, right? This is how most camps would look at it. Is we wouldn't focus primarily upon that, like asking each one of the questions to prove your lineage. If the brother comes up and says, "Oh, I'm from such and such," we say, "Oh, okay, cool. That brother is most likely an Israelite. If he's from there, we know that that's where the people are in." So yeah, that's what we go by when you test a guy with 20 different questions to prove if he's actually Israel or not. If he's from those locations, ask him about his father's father. And if it goes back to there, it's a good indicator that he would be a descendant. Now sure, going
But
back,
for
say
instance,
not okay.
like me, I my ancestry, like when I've taken, I know you say you don't believe in DNA, but when I took the DNA test, it showed that like my ancestors on my father's side, they go back to like Europe, and my mom's side, and like it is on the native side, right? It doesn't mean that my dad didn't have any native ancestors. It's just my paternal side goes back to Europe according to like the DNA evidence, right?
Right, I
And I know you don't
understand
accept
that,
that
but
because you stated that you didn't accept that
right.
was.
But here's something that should be acknowledged as well is we teach that it's possible that you could have an Israelite who might have white skin. You know why? Because throughout time, Israelite men might lie with other women of other nations, and their children can come out looking lighter than them over time, right? So you could have a guy today who looks white. So if you see the dude walking down the street, oh yeah, that's a Caucasian over there. But it turns out, if you go back a couple of his generations, he comes down from a black man. Just over the course of time, um, the with the father laying with women that were lighter than them, they can come out looking lighter. And there's plenty of examples
With
of
that
this.
in mind, wouldn't that follow that like a lot of the people that are in or that are in Israel, I know they're lighter, right? And they were in Europe at one point. Isn't that what they argue from their? That's typically what they argue, right? That a lot of their ancestry, they look a lot lighter because of their time in the diaspora, right, within Europe. I know you don't
Yeah,
believe
yeah.
that like the only diaspora. Do you believe like there was no diaspora to Europe, or do you accept that there was like a diaspora to Europe, or do you believe something
Well,
else? Where there's
we don't accept the people in Israel today. We believe those are imposters. Like, say for instance, like I don't know if you're familiar with the Book of Revelation, but it talks about how in the last days there would be people going around claiming that they are the true Israelites, but they are actually frauds. They're liars. So we'd point towards them, the people living in the land today, who claim they've got their independence established as a nation back in what was it, the 40s. um so we look at them as the imposters today. Now hell, could there be 50 of them that are actually real Israelites that go back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Sure, I'm not going to argue with that, but overall they're not, because in the Bible, right, dealing with the prophecies and the history, Israel was scattered abroad throughout the entire earth, right? And in the end times, when Christ comes back to redeem his people, they're going to be gathered from all over the world, not just primarily in Israel, right? So Israel is not going to be brought back totally together as one until Christ comes back and redeems his people. So yeah, so we don't believe those people in Israel are the true descendants today. I'll throw the mic back to you.
Well, it turns out that I also have like Ashkenazi DNA according to the DNA test, and it's both on my dad's side and my mom's side. So I think there was, and I know you believe that the. Do you believe that the Khazars are the descendants or the ancestors of the current Ashkenazis?
I've heard of that before. Yeah.
I mean, do you is that what you accept as true?
Um, I'd say based on what I've heard about it, it could be so. What would you say? Do you say that, or you say something different?
Because I think what I've done some research on it, and they say, and again, you probably don't believe that the DNA is correct, right? Where I
Right.
know there's certain people that say that like the Khazars are like forcing the DNA issue and like adding it.
Well, let me ask you this real quick, just so we can make sure we're on the same page. You would agree, you understand it from the Bible's perspective. Your lineage is determined by your father, not your mother. Like, let me give you an example. Like, if you read the book of Ezra, I
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
say
yeah.
verse
No, I agree with that
chapter.
part. I would
Well,
disagree with the
for the audience, let me just quote it. Ezra 2 of I believe it's 58 or 59 says that they went and declared their pedigrees by their father's side of the family, right? So in the Bible, what determines your nationality, who you are, it goes by the father's side of the family, not your mother. Just from the Bible's
Yeah, I agree
perspective.
with that. And whenever I argue with the Jews, I bring that up as well. But obviously, they don't listen.
Yeah, real quick, let me just respond to a comment. Stephen Lawyer, I see you in the comments, man. If you have a question or comment, just let it be known, man. But anyway, you can go ahead, Mike. Yours.
So you wouldn't call yourself an Aztec Hebrew Israelite, would you?
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't call
Okay.
myself that. I'd just call
So how
myself
would
an
I
Israelite.
guess how would you do? How would you? Because I've ran into a lot of the Aztec Hebrew Israelites because I'm obviously not Aztec, but I mean I'm native from like Mexico, right? Like part native from Mexico and
Right.
part European, obviously. And so from my perspective, it seems kind of like historically, how do you prove that like so like you said that oh so you believe like that it was through the lineage and it can be like in their past lineage that they're Israelites due to that. I've not heard of that. So I've not heard of that case before actually.
Yeah,
They
like
usually, they usually like the Aztec Israelites will say, well, there was like a big diaspora and they came in like ships or something, or that's
yeah, so just so I understand, you're talking about the Aztecs, like the Aztec Empire in Mexico. That's what you're talking about, right?
yeah,
Like a
that's
few hundred
typically
years
what the
ago.
Aztec Hebrew Israelites like.
Yeah, as far as the Aztecs, I would say it they are Israelites. It's just that they over the course of time, Israel, when they dispersed, they lost their nationality, lost who they are, lost their customs. So that's why they, went on to worship other false gods and, human sacrifices and, all the stuff they were doing. So back in time, they could descend from Israel, but since they got dispersed, into these outer lands, they lost their nationality, lost who they were, lost their customs, and followed after these other pagan gods and rituals that they followed. So sure, I'm not going to argue that they weren't Israelites, but I'm not going to call myself, Aztec or any of that. In
Yeah,
fact, let me say this, as somebody who's been looking into these camps, the Hebrew Israelites and stuff like that on YouTube, for 10 years now. I've never seen any of them call themselves, Aztec Israelites or whatever term you put on there. That's probably something they just came up with within the last like two or
yeah,
three
it's
years.
very new. I haven't.
Right, right.
I've seen it within like the past like 2 or 3 years. Like I ran into like probably like the first time I ran into people were like last year, but it's probably been a thing prior to that. But once they found out that I had Ashkenazi like paternal lineage, they were like, whoop, they cut me off and cut me off the stream. Well, I was also contending like what historical like evidence do they have that there was like a diaspora or like of Jews that came to like the Americas.
Yeah. So you're basically asking like, what evidence was there of like a dispersion of Israel abroad?
Yeah, like what evidence like from like ships or like
Well, yeah, I mean, we could look at it a couple different ways. Again, I don't know your knowledge about the Bible, how far that goes, but if you look into like Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, verse 68, it says that I'll bring you into Egypt again with ships. Now, we say that's talking about the transatlantic slave trade, 1619, because when we see in the book of Revelation, there's a new place that's called Egypt. What is that? Revelation, I want to say it's 11 verse 8 or 11:18. It says, yeah, I believe it's 11 verse 8. It says that they'll be brought to a new city, right? That's spiritually called Sodom and Egypt, right? Spiritually Sodom and Egypt. So we believe that modern day Sodom and Egypt represents America, right? Mystery Babylon. So that's one way Israel was brought in bondage to this new land. And as far as the Aztecs and like the Native Americans, because we believe that Native Americans were also Israelites, right? So Aztecs and Native Americans, how they got here, well, I'd recommend you check out the book of Second Ezra, the 13th chapter. It talks about like a foreign land. It calls it Arsareth, right? So Arsareth is would be modern day Americas, right? So North America, South America would be referred to as Arsareth in the Apocrypha. So that's part of like the removed books of the Bible that speak of roughly, or I should say briefly, about how some of Israel traveled over here to the Americas. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Have you heard of that before?
yeah, I've heard some of it, but not from a perspective of like using. I've heard of people using scripture, but then with scripture, you also have to provide like the scripture prove itself, right? Like there's archaeological evidence for scripture. There's like things we can prove, like
We'll deal
about
with
the
the
history.
Deuteronomy one, but first let me ask you: have you ever read Second Ezra 13? Are you familiar with that? You familiar with the
No, no, no.
Apocrypha at all?
I'm not really that familiar with that familiar with the Old Testament, to be honest. Like I,
Well, that's why I'm asking because it's not considered Old Testament. It's a book in between the Old Testament and the New Testament called the Apocrypha. You ever check that out?
yeah. I've checked out some of the works.
Yeah, and so in your free time, I'd recommend you check out Second Ezra chapter 13. In there, it talks about how some of Israel they went to a place called Arsareth. So that would be a modern day North and South America. So that's how some of Israel got scattered over here throughout their history. Now, as
But
far
but
as
say like you could interpret that as like a diaspora to Europe too, right? Like you you can say that.
again, don't get me wrong. This is why I said earlier that Israel's scattered throughout all the world today. You have Israel in all nations of the world, right? Israelites are scattered abroad throughout the whole earth today,
Okay, so
right?
you
So
wouldn't argue that like if a person is blonde hair, blue eyes, they're automatically like Esau.
I wouldn't automatically condemn them as Esau. We'd first ask them their lineage, like how what's their knowledge of that,
But what if
is
they
their
said like
father.
they're Sephardic or you know the major terms that they would use in like Israel? Would you say that none of them are like Israelites?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I wouldn't say they're Israelites. Like say for instance, in the Bible there's 18 different nations of people, right? So not everybody can be an Israelite. Obviously, billions of people have to be a non Israelite, right? Because the way everyone likes to make it look like is that everybody's an Israelite. It's like, well, no, not everybody can be an Israelite. If there's 18 nations of people, Israel's just one nation, so that's 17 left. There has to be other people to fill that void. So no, not everybody would be Israelite. The best way we would go about asking is you ask them about their lineage. If they tell us all, I'm from, such and such, father, was, white, European, and all that, we'd say, yeah, well, it's likely that you'd be an Edomite. But if a brother comes up, might look him white, hell, blonde hair, blue eyes, but tells us, yeah, a couple generations, I actually am a descendant of a Native American.
But
It's
maybe,
like, oh, yeah, well,
but say, what
go ahead.
if he was told a lie, right? What if he was lied to by his parents? There's a lot of people in the U.S. that claim, well, I'm
Yeah,
Cherokee,
now the way, well, let's look at it this way, right? Um, at the end of the day, we're really all just taking this upon faith. Because again, we can't go back 1,000 years to prove your lineage and my lineage. Now we could try to go back a couple hundred years, but guess what? Beyond that, it's a mystery. So the best way to look at it is this. It says in Daniel, the 12th chapter, that the wicked would do wickedly and none of the wicked would understand. So if you can have somebody who sincerely believes in this doctrine, well, that's a good indicator that person must be righteous. That person must be a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. If they can sincerely believe this message,
So to you, it's
that's
more
a good
about
indicator.
faith and like not really about like archaeology or the DNA or anything
Well,
of that effect.
let's not get it mistaken. We are asking about the lineage, but if somebody comes up and says they truly have no idea, well, the next indicator we would go by is okay. Well, if you don't know about any of your descendants and all of that, well, can you believe the message? Can you believe what's being taught? Because the Bible says that the wicked wouldn't believe. So if you can sincerely believe it, well, that's a good indicator that you most likely are a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, going by the text, if you can sincerely believe this message that we're teaching.
But
So that's the
not all
second
Israel will be
method we
saved,
would.
right? Not all Israel will be
Yeah,
saved.
of course, not all Israel's going to be saved. Like, say, for instance, you got people today who call themselves Israelites who don't believe upon Christ, even though they claim that they're Israelites. You got people going around today who might truly be a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but if they don't live by the laws of the Bible, well, guess what? That's not going to profit them at the end of the day.
Well, I would
So
agree with
yeah,
that. That people can claim a lot of stuff and like even,
right.
but we'll know them by their deeds, right? We'll know them by their fruits.
Yeah, you would know somebody all for their actions, correct?
So wouldn't that imply that somebody, even though they're not in the Israelite, they could like say like Ruth, right? She wasn't born an Israelite, right? But she chose to believe and became
Well, let
like
me
part
ask
of the
you.
community, right?
Well, let me ask you on that, right? Ruth, she spared the spies that came in to view the city, right? She hid them away, and they spared her life and her family when they besieged the city, right? So that wasn't a case of her gaining like spiritual salvation, life eternal. She just did a good favor for Israel. So then in return, they repaid the favor to her and spared her and her family. But that doesn't mean that she got
I think
eternal
that's a
life
different
now.
that's a different person, right? I'm talking about Ruth, like a Boaz and the lineage of Jesus, where she was
Well, I
married
know
to
there's a few
Boaz.
people in the Bible that share the same name. Like, I'll give an example. Did you know that in the Apocrypha there's somebody else named Jesus? So
No,
again, sometimes there's people that have the same name in the Bible. Like, hell, there's multiple Johns talked about in the Bible,
no,
for an
I was
example.
just referring to like her becoming a convert, right? Like even some Egyptians left with the Israelites and joined like the community.
Right. So the way we'd understand that is those people, yeah, they could come, live among Israel, but they didn't receive salvation. They didn't receive eternal salvation. But yeah, they could come and live among Israel. There wasn't a problem with that living. Like, say, for example, right?
Oh, so you don't
Like,
believe that somebody outside of like the seed of Abraham can be saved?
Yeah, we believe that salvation was only for the 12 tribes of Israel. But we do believe that the other nations are going to be living on earth when Christ rules the world, but they're going to be subject to him and subject to Israel. Right. And you can read this all throughout the Bible, Isaiah 60, Isaiah 49,
Oh, so that's why a lot
Revelation
of like
2.
Hebrew Israelites will like assert when they're speaking like in the street that we're going to rule and you're going to be our slaves, and so I've heard them say that like about Esau.
Yeah, yes. The teach that hell according to the Bible. And again, I don't know your knowledge of the Bible, so I don't know how deep I can go
No, I'm
with
not.
that.
I'm
But
not like a big. I'm not a big person in like in theology. I don't really study.
okay, like I'll give you one example, right? Give me your understanding of this first, and just so I know, would you call yourself a Christian, or like what's your religious view when it comes to like the Bible or that?
Well, I would call myself a Christian, definitely, but I think the first people of the way, right? They were called of the way. Christian was just a term that was used in Antioch first, right? So I would say
Right.
that I'm of the way, which
Okay.
is
Fair enough.
of
Fair
the way, the
enough.
truth, and the life, Jesus. Yeah,
Right. I understand. So
and
like
I
one verse
understand
I'll
like the
throw.
nuance of like the name Jesus, right? Is like not the original like
Yeah,
name.
well, the letter J came into existence in the year 1524, right? So that wouldn't really be his name. It's just the way that it's interpreted in the
Yeah,
modern
yeah.
English Bibles we have. But anyway, going back to what I was saying, I was going to ask you what's your faults about this verse. I'll give you a clear example after the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ, where he talks about when he comes back, he's going to give people power over other people. This is Revelation chapter 2, verse 25 to 27. Chris said, hold fast to what I have, what I gave you until I return, and I'll give you dominion over the people, right? I'll give you power to rule over them with a rod of iron, right? So Christ said when he comes back, he's going to give his men who will overcome until the end, he's going to give them power to rule over the nations with a rod of iron. Now, when we look at that, we view that as, hey, when Christ comes back, some people are going to be given authority over towns, right, over kingdoms, right, over cities. Christ is going to give them that authority, and the people are going to be subjected to them. And notice it said he'd rule over one with a rod of iron. That doesn't seem like all, love and kisses and rainbows. That sounds like, somebody's going to be laying down the rules and people are going to be following. And if you disobey, well, there's going to be some punishment involved. What's your understanding of that text from your view?
Well, I think I don't know the whole context of that verse. I've read it before, but I would have to look at the context before I answer. I don't like just taking a verse out and just like not looking at the context around it. That's just my take on it. I'm not saying you're doing that. I'm just saying this is the way I usually like analyze the text.
Okay.
It's like
Well,
when I read
yeah.
like a book, right? Like a physics book or any book. Like I want to read like the whole book from start to finish and like understand the entire context and not just go to the equation, right? And like think I understand it.
Okay.
And I'm not saying you're
But
doing that. I'm just saying this is the way that I typically like analyze things.
right, I understand, but going by the text quoted though, like how would you just hearing it for the first time, like what would you think about that when Christ says that when he comes back, he's going to give certain men authority over nations or kingdoms of people or cities of people and to
Well,
rule over them with
I
a
think to me
rod of iron?
it goes back to what he had said about like he that is faithful in a little, I will make ruler over much, right?
Yeah,
So
that can correlate with yeah.
he's like saying that like for to me it seems that he's like saying okay, I'm going to give you more responsibility, right? At one
Right.
point in the future when I return or whatever, right? When you stand before him and because obviously there's going to be if we have authority here, right? I think for me, I believe like the authority over like demons, sickness, and like the demonic, right? Like I believe Matthew 10:8.
Right.
I take it very literal. So I think not in a dominionist way of like taking over the government or anything. Like I don't believe like the right wing in terms of like, oh, we need to take over the government. And I know Christ will, he rules, and he'll rule one day over the kings of the earth, as it says. But and I don't understand that whole. It may be literal. It may not be literal. I don't know, and I don't like
Well,
saying that.
just out of curiosity, what would you say in that makes you think it might not be literal? Just if you could have like one or two points of why you might view that way.
Because like when it talks about like the new Jerusalem coming down from heaven, I think it talks about like the new heaven and the new earth, right? So it's like
Yeah.
it
Yeah, you're
can't
talking
be
about
it,
Revelation
like
21 and 22.
some people say that like, well, that like the interpretation is that it was like it's just like going to be wiped and cleaned, and it's going to be like the same earth. But to me, it's like, well, it says everything will be burned up, right? Including that would include the earth. So I would imagine that it's going to be like a cosmic annihilation of this realm, and there's going to have to be like a new heaven, like it says, a new heaven and a new earth. So
Yeah,
it's like
yeah. I
an
mean,
entirely different
yeah,
place.
from our, yeah, I disagree with you on that. The way I view it is that certain parts of the earth are going to be burned. Like, say, for instance, there's a lot of the world that is totally like empty, like forest or desert, where just creatures are living and people have like never stepped foot in. Like, did you know between North and South America, there is a place called the Darien Gap that they've been trying for 100 years to build a road through, and you just can't because the forest and
Well, you're
swamps,
talking about like
it's
in
too
South
thick.
America, right? Is that in South
Ye-
America?
Yeah, there, and then you have the Amazon rainforest in Brazil. And then, all over the world, there's places where just animals are dwelling
Yeah,
and
it's
there's no like
uninhabitable.
human
Yeah.
establishments. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because when you read about the Bible, like bringing judgment upon the earth, it's mostly focused upon where people are at. It's not God like burning the animals in the desert. Like the animals didn't do nothing wrong. It's the wrath against these cities, like say for instance, like London, Germany, Israel, America, right? So these places are going to be judged with fire. But as far as like the ocean, or or like a desert in the middle
Or
of
it says
nowhere.
like don't harm the sea or something like that in some of the plagues. Or don't harm like
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah. I know what you're talking about.
like the
Yeah,
grass or whatever. I
right.
forget
So when
exactly what
God
it says.
brings His judgment upon the earth, like to burn with fire, it's basically talking about like these places where civilization is. So that's what's going to be burned up. It's not like the entire world's going to be like just explode one day.
Yeah,
And
I don't
I
disagree that
disagree
that
on that.
may be like an alternative, that's a good alternative like explanation that I would like. Okay, I've heard people say it, and it could be, but to me, like it just seems like it seems like complete destruction to me, like from my interpretation. Not saying that this is right or that this is the only way, right? Because there's like a lot of ways that you can interpret it, given like all the body of scripture.
Right, I understand what you're saying. But with that being said, so you'd believe that like the ocean itself will be like evaporated then, right? With all that heat and fire.
Well, I think everything like in this universe, like this whole thing will be gone. Like that's what I believe. Like the whole thing will
Okay.
just be
Well,
gone.
I got an interesting question for you. I don't know if you ever thought of this. But if Isaiah 13 about Babylon, like how Babylon, it says when she's taken down, when she falls, she's going to remain as a desert
Do you
forever.
believe that
And
Babylon is like America, like history
yeah, I hold
Babylon?
that. I believe that, but we can talk about that in a minute. But the reason I was going to ask you about Isaiah 13, it talks about when Babylon, right, wherever that is, when she falls, she's going to be a desert forever. No humans ever going to dwell there again, but only desert creatures. So that's going into like when the kingdom's here about Babylon being a desolate, just
But I
wilderness
think
forever.
you would have to like assert that this realm is eternal and I don't think that this realm is eternal. I think this is a finite realm. Like we're finite, right?
Well,
There
what's your
was a
thoughts
beginning.
about
There was like
well,
a
real quick,
beginning to this realm, yeah.
right. So you're saying that there was like a beginning and going to be like a physical end to this round, right?
Yeah, because like
Okay.
this whole realm is like corrupt, right? Like everything
Well,
in it is.
that's why Christ is coming back to bring judgment upon the world is for the sin and corruptness. But the earth itself isn't wicked; it's just men living upon the earth, right? But the reason I brought this up is there's many verses in the Bible that talk about the kingdom coming down to earth, like in was it Matthew 6 about the Father's prayer. In there, a reference that says, "Thy kingdom come," right on the earth as it is in heaven, right?
But
So
he's
the Bible,
I take that as like he's saying like what like he said, right? The kingdom of God is within you. So like you bring the kingdom to the earth when you heal the sick, when you cast out a devil, when you raise the dead, because that's what the kingdom is, right? It's like authority over the fallen nature or the demonic.
yeah, I don't view it that way, but I
Like
understand where
yeah,
you're
I'm viewing
coming
it
from
like
with that.
sort of how the disciples would have viewed it, right? But I don't know if you
Right.
accept that like the disciples that it died with the disciple. Did you believe that it ceased at that point with them,
Just so
or
I understand, what is it you're asking if I believe deceased with them? Well, what is that exactly? So I understand.
so like the the command like heal the sick, raise the dead, cast out demons? Well, he
No,
said,
no, that
well, he said preach
we're
the
still
kingdom of
supposed
God.
to do that. We're supposed to do that today.
That's what I'm saying. Like that, I believe that that's like for today, right? Like the kingdom is we're bringing the kingdom because it's within us, and everywhere we go.
The way I look at that, let's look at it this way, right? So when it says that the kingdoms within you, like when you heal somebody of an illness, right, or show kindness unto someone who did you wrong, you're basically showing that person Christ through you. You're showing his character through you. That doesn't mean that you yourself are literally Christ, but you're showing that person Christ, right? You're being
But
Christ-like.
I'm
You're being a
seated with
Christian.
Christ, right? Like I'm seated with Christ in heavenly places, and I'm right here too. And I have the mind of Christ, right?
Um,
I'm the body of Christ. I'm part of the body.
so well, just to understand, what do you mean by heavenly places?
Well, like it says, I don't remember the verse because I usually don't read like the Bible to like memorize the verses.
Right.
I probably should, like, but I usually read it like any other book, and I just remember what I read, right? Uh,
Yeah.
that's just kind of how I do it. But it'd probably be better to know the verse because then I could refer to it. But essentially, it's just it's in one of the epistles where it says, "You have the mind of Christ."
Right.
And that
And
doesn't mean
I'd
that
say
we're Christ, right? It doesn't mean that like
right.
we receive some Christ consciousness. It's just we have like a knowledge, right? I think we have the knowledge of Him.
Right. I understand that, but like the way that we get the knowledge of Christ is right, believing on him and reading his word and living by what he said, right? What he commanded
Yeah, I
us to
think I
do.
agree with me and you will agree with a lot of things. 'Cause I heard you talking last time, and you were rebuking all the far right wingers that were here,
Right.
and I was kind of like appalled by them, and I've always been appalled by them, and I think you had a lot of good points like against them, right? So I wouldn't. I think we agree
Right.
on a lot of things in terms of like how to live, and it seems that
Yeah. I mean that's definitely a good
I've noticed
start.
you're very scripturally
Good start.
grounded. We just might disagree on like this history
Right.
and all that.
And my friend, let's look at it this way, right? Like, look for people watching, take inspiration from me and the other brother up on here. Even though we both don't agree, look how we're able to have a respectful back and forth conversation about why we agree or why we disagree.
Yeah,
Everybody
it
else,
should never
unlike
be like it should never be like us chewing each other apart because
right,
Jesus said, "Don't devour one another," right? Thus you be consumed.
right. So for everybody watching, like take note of that. You should strive to be like me and him. How we're able to have a respectful dialogue without attacking one another. Even if we disagree, we're still able to reason
Yeah,
about why
I
we
think I
might
do
agree
that.
or
I mean, I'm
disagree.
guilty of that too. Like, it's easy to like. I think it's easier in text to do it because
Right.
then like it feels like you have more accountability. It seems like when we speak it like something, I don't know, for me it seems like if I speak something against somebody, it's like different than when I type it, but it's the same. Essentially, I'm doing the same thing, right? Because I'm still belittling that person and making them feel bad, but I'm just not doing it with my voice, and then I can't hear them, so I don't know like what they're like, right?
Right.
Or even
I
if
get
they
what
are
you're
bad
saying.
people, like I could drop off, right? Like I could say, well, I don't want to have a conversation with this person because it's not going to be fruitful. But I think in
Yeah,
text,
I
it's a lot easier to
understand.
get. It's a lot easier to just like brush it off and be like, okay, I could just ignore what he's saying, or or just keep writing what I believe, and then you're not really having a dialogue. You're just
Right, I
talking
get what
over
you're
one another.
saying. But you were real quick before we lose train of thought. You were going to ask me something about me believing that Babylon's America. Well, what's your stance on that? What were you going to ask me earlier?
Well, I actually believe that Mystery Babylon is America. To be honest, I would, I guess I would agree with like what a lot of the Black Hebrew Israelites say because I've heard them say it as well. I think
Okay,
either
good.
that.
What's the point?
It's kind of hard to say that it's like Rome. Obviously, they don't have a like a port that like exports to the entire world, or like singers. Or obviously, America has like the greatest like singers, and they
I mean,
export all
hell,
the
there's a TV show called American Idol, right? Where all these singers go on and perform their songs. But the point is, it's called American Idol. And then, ironically enough, Britain, right, the mother of America, a founder of America, she has her own show. I believe it's called Britain Got Talent. Right, they took it from America's,
So
America Got
Babylon was
Talent
like Babylon in
and
the scripture
stuff
is
like
Rome,
that.
right? They said it was Rome or something like that, right? And then Mystery Babylon is or like the
I believe you're referring to what was it? One of Peter's epistles where he says that he writes unto the church that's in Babylon, and people
yeah.
try to say that was
People say that it's
like a
Rome.
congregation in Rome. No, the way that I'd understand it is he's writing to a congregation of believers who lived in ancient Babylon. Because
Okay.
remember, in the Old Testament, there was a place called Babylon. Hell, you could fly over there and stay in a hotel today, and you could walk through the ancient streets because that city, even though it fell over time, by many different raids and attacks, the walls still stand. You could go visit that place right now today. So there were believers back then who lived in ancient Babylon, but there's clearly a difference between the Babylon of the Old Testament, right, with King Nebuchadnezzar and his son, and modern day Babylon in the 21st century.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely a big difference. So I think I disagree on that, but that's okay.
Well, real quick, just so I
I'd probably go
understand.
back to that and look at it like to.
Yeah, well, just so I understand real quick, what was the thing that you said right now that we'd have to disagree on? Just so
No,
I
no, no.
understand what
I
you're
mean, I
talking
just
about.
I guess I would have to probably study it more to see if that because
Oh, I understand. I understand. So just so I don't get confused, so the thing that you were disagreeing on is when Peter wrote the epistle to the church in Babylon, you believe that was talking about a church in Rome, correct?
well, I guess I'm just using like traditionally, so I don't know if that's actually like factual, right? I'm just going by the
Well, I mean,
tradition.
I'd say that there's a lot of people who would use that argument, but I'd say they clearly are incorrect with that argument because I don't see how I don't see where they're getting to show it that's Rome at. Like I think that they're just trying to correlate something that's not there. Like maybe they're trying to say, okay, well, well maybe he was in Rome for a
Was that
time,
written?
or
Was that written in the book of Romans though?
the exact verse on that I couldn't give you off the top of the head, so I can't answer yes or no.
Yeah, I don't remember
Um,
either, but I think it.
yeah, but it's in one
Yeah,
of his
I'm
epistles
not going
though.
to say that it was because I don't know.
But yeah, the way, like, say for instance, when you read their epistles, they'll say, such and such of the church, and
Yeah, to the
this
church in
place or
Rome,
that
right?
place.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, yeah, and the book of Romans, what is that? It's written to church congregation of believers that are in Rome. So when he
But I
writes an
think
epistle,
the traditional view was that they would call like Rome like Babylon.
Well, I'll explain it this way. Most churches today, if you ask them about the question, they'll tell you that Rome's Babylon. Like, I'll give an example. Like, I used to go to the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and it's part of their main belief that Rome, along with the Pope and Catholic Church, that's Mystery Babylon, right? And they'll point
Oh yeah,
to the
I disagree
Vatican
with that
City,
part too. Yeah,
right? They'll
but they
point to the
do
Vatican
argue
City.
that it's like there's like a scattering of the sort of like in the book of Daniel how it says the clay and the iron, right? So like the strong nations that are like connected to Rome, which is like probably the Europeans, and then in America, right? I think that's sort of what they argue.
Yeah, I believe
Somewhat
you're referring to like Daniel the seventh chapter with the figure that
yeah,
the king seen in his dream. That's what you're referring to,
yeah,
right?
correct, yeah.
Yeah, that's just talking about like over the course of time about like empires that would rule upon the earth. And then when it gets down to the feet and the miry clay, that's referring to, we teach it, that's talking about the NATO and the EU today. So yeah, it's still talking about like the European nations and around that region and whatnot. Yeah, that's what we teach about it.
Well,
So
so
it's like
we would probably I think we'd agree on that or the modern understanding of it. Yeah.
right, right.
I think
So
it's
from the
hard to, or I think it's really hard to like say that it's like actual Babylon because I mean there's nothing there right today, or like there's still some there, but it's not like a major power of the earth that exports,
yeah,
right?
yeah, it can't be ancient Babylon from the Old Testament because well once again I want to point out yeah, the city fell. And even though walls of the city still stand to this day, it's not a global superpower.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
nobody knows there. Nobody wants to go there. It's not an importer of nothing. It's
Or
not
will some
persecuting
people
anybody.
interpret it as like Mecca? Because I was thinking about that too. Is like
It's funny that you say that because I was going back and forth with some knucklehead in the comment section. I believe like maybe 3 weeks ago. I even invited him up here to have a debate or discussion about it, like how me and you were having. But for whatever reason, he declined. So I had to do like a 40-minute response to him about why I view it differently. And his arguments were very weak. Basically, it was, well, look, it says that they cast dust upon their heads and cried over Babylon. Well, that's a custom in Middle East. And that's basically like the only talking point that he had for why it was in the Middle
yeah, I think
East.
it still isn't. It isn't right because like the whole earth doesn't depend on like or not all the merchants of the earth depend on on Mecca or like even Arabia.
Yeah,
It
like I mean,
depends on
seriously,
America.
like what are they importing over there? Like some made in China jewelry to sell and some Qurans and
I mean, it's mainly
apparel.
like
I mean,
oil, right? It's mainly just like oil or like.
well, yeah, they got a lot of oil and stuff over there. That's true. But when you compare what it
But
talks about
they don't
Babylon,
export
like
singers, right? They don't export like these
right, like say for
all that.
instance, right, when you read about Babylon, it gives like a whole depiction of merchandise that are imported into the city from around the world. They're nearly given a couple examples, right? Cinnamon, cattle, um, woods, perfume, um, grains, right? All types of different spices and clothing, and the list just keeps going on and on and on. It literally has, like multiple lines of the merchandise that are being imported over the seas to Babylon. Like that doesn't fit Mecca, but it does fit America, though. I mean, I don't know if you've seen any of these seaports out here with these
Yeah,
massive cargo ships, right, bringing merchandise from all over the world. I mean, hell, you go to Walmart or any of these stores out here in the
yeah.
states.
There's no way of like unseeing it once you see it. I think once you see it, it's like, wait a minute, it can't be like any
Yeah,
other
I mean,
nation.
once you see it, it's very it's you really can't deny it once you see it. Again, a lot of people just don't want to accept that for whatever motive they have, but it's just the truth, right? It's just the truth, and people just don't want to accept that for whatever reason.
Well, it also brings into to mind like when I think of like the Great Mother of Harlots. and all the abominations of the earth. Like I think of like the Statue of Liberty. Like
Fun fact for you: did you know that when the Statue of Liberty was set up, they actually were gonna paint her in purple and scarlet color? But the reason they didn't is because the sea water would erode it over time, making it ugly. So that's why they didn't,
oh,
put
the
it that way.
Freemasons from France.
Right, right.
Yeah, and then we got like the obelisk set up, and that's like another thing that's set up in Rome too, right?
Well, here's a fun fact for you. Did you know that in the Center Square Park in New York, they actually imported I believe it's 3 or 4 thousand year old Egyptian obelisk from Egypt, right? And they brought it overseas. I believe it's like back in like the 1800s, and they set it up in the Center Square Park, right? You can do a Google search on that if you want to take a picture. I mean,
Oh,
not
there's
take a
one in
picture, but
Central
look at the
Park too. I
picture
didn't
of
know
it.
that. I didn't know they had one in Central Park.
Yeah, yeah. When you're done on here, do a Google search for that. You'll see it, man. It's a massive 3 or 4 thousand year old Egyptian obelisk from Egypt that they imported overseas here to America a couple hundred years ago.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of corruption going on, right? Within the obviously within like these Epstein files are just like sick, and but we already knew they were sick. We didn't know like all the details, and we still don't know all the details. I mean,
Right, I understand what you're saying. I mean, again, me personally, I don't really read into all that stuff because I think it's again half true, half not. Because we all understand that the people who run this world are, evil, demonic, worship Satan, take part of all these evil things. So sure, the stuff in there isn't hard to believe, but I think people are gullible as well. Because think about this: the government could just add any celebrity or world leader to these files, and everybody just believes it. Like nobody takes a second thought to say, well, you know what? Maybe they put such and such person's name in here because they want to maybe get us to not like that person for some reason. So as
hmm.
far as all those files that people are, doing backflips over and pulling their hair out over, I think that's somewhat a distraction away from the real things happening in the world, like the war in Ukraine, the war in Iran.
Yeah,
China's about to take Taiwan, and everyone's
China's about
just
to take Taiwan.
distracted by these. Yeah, yeah, you're not familiar with that.
Well, I've heard like they've been talking about it for a while, but have
Yeah,
they?
man, you got to pay attention to the news, man. I mean, China's been circling that island for the last at least year, man. You're not
Oh,
familiar with that? Yeah, I mean
I didn't know
they're
they
they're
were circling.
creating barges right now, like barges to put out in the that sink into the soil off of the island where they can just bring ships in to transport
Well, what do you think? What do you think's going to
tanks
happen?
and stuff to the
Say when
island.
like what do you think's going to happen? Say when because like America is going to be destroyed in 1 hour, right, by nukes, according to
Yeah,
prophecy, in 1 hour.
correct.
So,
Yes.
like, do you think that's when they're going to go against like what's going to happen at that point? Do you believe? Like,
Well, I'd say going by my teaching of it is that happens at the end of the great tribulation. So Christ returns, gathers up his chosen people into the chariots. And as that's taking place, the destruction's coming upon Babylon because the destruction's going to come from these other nations, but it's Christ is also going to take part in that judgment as well. So you're going to have these other nations firing on Babylon, and as that's taking place, Christ is also bringing fire upon it. Like I'll give an example for you. If you read Isaiah 66, verse 15 to 17, says, and I'm not able to paraphrase him, but it says that Christ is going to return with his chariots with flames of fire to bring judgment upon the people, right? And those that eat the mouse and swine, they're going to be consumed together. But the point is, Christ is coming with his chariots to bring fire upon the earth and judgment. So Babylon, which is America, she's going to be judged by God's Son. That's true. But as that's taking place, she's also going to be hit by these other nations in retaliation. What is that? Revelation 17, verse 16, where it says that the beast will hate the whore, right? And attack her and burn her, nearly paraphrasing it. So yeah, that happens at the very end. So it's not going to be like say for instance, people pretend that it might be like next month or something like that. Like no, there's certain things They have to
Yeah, certain
happen
things that
before
have to
that.
happen before, right?
Right.
Well, so you take it like in chronological order, like the Book of Revelation.
No, there's stuff in there that's certainly not in chronological order. Um, but with that being said, if you read some of the passages, it makes it clear that some things do happen before others. I guess it just depends on the chapter and context. Like I'll give an example. Like Revelation 9, part of that's talking about World War One, but then the other part of it's talking about in the future when Babylon is judged. Like I'll give another example. When you read Matthew 24, Luke 21, Mark 13, when Christ is talking about the signs of the end of the world and the judgment on Jerusalem, it's talking about two different time periods. Some of those verses are talking about 70 AD when Jerusalem's surrounded by armies and sacked, but then some of it's talking about the very end when Christ comes back for a second time. So it just varies as to what verse or context is being talked about.
Yeah, I would agree too that like there's some things that are not like people that take it in a linear fashion. They're not like really thinking it out properly.
Right, right. I understand.
All right, man. I'm gonna get off. It was nice talking to you. Uh,
All right, man. Have a good night. Appreciate the conversation.
all right. God bless. Okay, bye.
All right, have a nice night. All right, so I'll go back to the comments here. All right, AI love, or all love, as I thought it was. He was actually a pretty decent individual. Everybody was saying that I was a troll or Jay's second account. And as I said, hell, it could have been. But now since we had him up here to talk, it's clearly not, right? Clearly not. So, hey, that's just a good example why you can't just call everybody a troll and a fake account. But hell, before he came up here, nobody knew. So yeah, good discussion, interesting conversation. Let me see real quick what's going on. I seen Stephen Lawyer down here. He was throwing like some type of like pissy fit because I didn't stop my conversation and say hello and welcome, Stephen Lawyer. Right. So like say for instance, right, he said, "Oh, you don't read chat." And I comment say, "Well, I do read chat." Right. So it's like I don't know. I don't know what you're up here crying about, man. I mean, you see me in the middle of a conversation with somebody, right? And the discussion is getting good. So I'm not just going to interrupt the conversation just to say, "Oh, hello and welcome, Stephen Lawyer." I said hello in the chat. I said hi to you in the chat. I mean, that should be good enough, man. You know what I'm saying? And I remember this dude. I remember this guy from well, maybe like 9 months ago, 8, 9 months ago. This guy was in the chat talking about, oh, the serpent seed. You know, um, uh, Adam's wife Eve had Cain with Satan, and like Jupiter aliens or something. I mean, well, come on, man. Really? You're still saying this garbage? Almost a year later, man. Come on. Here for 1 second. I'm just reading over the comments real quick. If anybody has a question or comment, this is your time to comment it now. All right, you know what? What I think I'm gonna do is I'm going to actually give you people two shows tonight, right? To make up for what happened earlier with how the last stream got messed up. I went on here. We'll wrap this one up at 2 hours, and then I'll come right back, and I'll probably go for another hour or so. Yeah, I got to like 3 a.m. Sounds pretty good. I got should be pretty good till then. So I'll wrap this show up in like 5 minutes. I'll let it get to 2 hours, and then I will come right back to start up another show. Sometimes we get people to stop by later at night. Because sometimes we got people that are at all different areas of the world. We got people calling in from or tuning in, whatever word you want to use, from Australia, Wuhan, China, believe that or not, Brazil, Canada, Africa. Again, we got viewers tuning in from all over the world at all types of different time zones. But yeah, overall, it was a decent stream, right? Good conversation with AI Love, and yeah, Troy Taylor. Yo, Troy, I was actually planning on doing a response to you. Um, Maybe I'll eventually get to that, but I was planning on doing a response video to you because you've been saying a lot of garbage in my comment sections over the last couple of months or whatever. Um, you just don't know what's going on, man. Like say for instance, let's see what he said. He said, "Mystery Babylon is interpreted as a representation of corrupt religious systems that mix practices with Christian teachings. Is not America." Yeah, this is just a good example of how Troy Taylor is just totally ignorant and has no knowledge of what he's talking about. And by the way, I've offered this guy, I want to say at least 25 times now over the last year to join the live stream and have a discussion, but he don't want to do it. I don't know why. I don't know why he's in his late 60s and he's afraid to have a discussion with a 20-year-old. I mean, I find that a little bit sad and pathetic, if I had to be quite honest. So again, the dude can run his mouth a mile a minute in my comment section, but when it comes to actually having a conversation, he's nowhere to be found. It's hilarious. But as far as his statement, I'll cut him 6 ways to Sunday real quick with them skibbies, right? With them skibbies. Inside joke. Said Babylon's is interpreted as a representation of corrupt religious systems with mixed pagan practices with Christian teachings. It's like, okay, that's not true. I mean, what the hell are you talking about? But like, first of all, when you read about Babylon, there's nothing in there that talks about a religious system. Like this is the main kick in the balls here, right? The Bible describes Babylon as a city that makes all the merchants of the earth rich off of importing their merchandise and selling it in Babylon. That all nations bow before, that rules over the kings of the earth. Look what America did to the Venezuela president. Flew in there, grabbed his ass and threw him in American prison just because he said a couple things on Twitter that Trump didn't like. Or look what's going on in Iran right now, where America went over there, killed their leader, putting all types of decrees upon them saying, you do this, you end this on our terms. So, like, what other nation can do that? Well, seriously, that's my question. What other nation out there can rule over the earth with a rod of iron, with an iron fist? Or as the book of Jeremiah, what is that? Jeremiah 51 talks about the hammer of the earth. Well, who the hell? That's my question to you, Troy. Who the hell is the hammer of the earth? Who the hell has 8 to 900 military bases around the world? That ain't no religious system. I mean, what are you talking about, knucklehead? As I said, man, people like this are really, are really laughable and pathetic. You know what I'm saying? It really is laughable and pathetic. These are the numbskulls that consider themselves to be wise and educated. And this is the bullshit that they have to go around and preach and believe. I mean, come on, man. Troy, you need to get your mind out of the gutter, man. Seriously. But anyway, y'all, it's been 2 hours. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna end this live stream, and I'm in 5 minutes. I'm gonna set up another live stream for an hour for my late night viewers. So y'all watching me live right now, come back in 5 minutes, and I'm gonna start up one more show for tonight. But anyway, I'm gonna wrap the show up there.